Oh, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to begin on a selfish point, which I'm not supposed to do, but it'll turn selfless in a moment when you understand what I'm trying to say. Is during the course of the last week, you may have noticed my absence from Twitter. If you haven't noticed my absence from Twitter, it's because you don't follow me on Twitter, and you should. But I haven't been on Twitter, except they've left the page up, except I just can't say anything on the page, which is particularly annoying because certain individuals, shall we say, left of centre in Irish politics, have decided to use the opportunity to ask me questions. It is very irritating, given that they know bloody well that I'm not in a position to answer any questions that are put to me. But one of them, and I think my very presence here and the very presence of everybody who is here today, and in particular, I will be gender specific if they don't mind. There are two, by the way, so it won't take me long. Unlike the group here yesterday, who would have taken half the day to explain how many genders were present. There are two. But I want to speak about the men who are here in particular. Because one of the accusations that's been put to me in the last week that I couldn't answer, and they knew I couldn't answer, was why am I afraid of strong women? Now, over the next while, you'll probably get to know Rebecca. That's the mother of my children there. If anybody has met her before, you'll be damn sure that Justin Barrett is not afraid of strong women. And I know another thing that Gemma won't want me to say, because generally speaking she's self-effacing to a fault. But the fact of the matter is, if Justin Barrett was afraid of strong women, really seriously, would he be here speaking at a rally that had been organised by Jemma O'Doherty, who is, beyond doubt and beyond question, one of the most determined, one of the strongest, one of the most committed women that Ireland has ever seen? No, anybody who is here is not afraid of strong women. Every woman that I have met at these events has been a strong woman. And every man that I have met at these events has not been the kind of man who is afraid of strong women. What we are sick and tired of us all, both men and women here today, is of weak men running our country into the ground. And it's become time to do something about it. The late Teddy Roosevelt, former American president, once said at the cornerstone, Teddy Roosevelt, by the way, was the good Roosevelt, not Franklin Delano, who managed to keep the United States in a depression for 12 years until he started the World War. But now we have, following in his footsteps, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. There's my diversity, I pronounced that properly. Who seems to believe that unless lesbians start giving birth to shrubs within the next 12 years, we're all doomed. That's the Green New Deal, to match Franklin Delano's New Deal from the 1930s, which didn't work either. Now I'm talking about Teddy. Teddy Teddy once said that the cornerstone of American foreign policy was to walk softly and carry a big stick. Now again, speaking of my recent adventures, is and Gemma's and a number of other people's with regard to assaults from people of left of centre, shall we say, once again, or left of mental. I was in a Garda station and I asked him, in light of Teddy Roosevelt's comments that the cornerstone of a good foreign policy was to walk softly and carry a big stick, that given that I had been threatened online, given that there had been death threats against Gemma O'Doherty, given that there had been death threats against other people who had carried out those threats in very recent days to the time that I went in, would it be okay if I carried a big stick? And he said, well, no, that wouldn't be okay. He said, watch God, because that would show intent. Although actually saying you were going to do it on Twitter apparently does not amount to intent. So we can't walk softly and carry a big stick. And here's my advice in general, by the way, and there may be some legal people in this crowd, I'm aware of that. I don't mean to insult you when I say this, but if you want to get legal advice in this country, don't go to a solicitor and don't go to a barrister, go to a guard. Because a solicitor and a barrister will tell you what your constitutional and legal rights are, but a guard will tell you what's going to actually happen. Because when it comes to enforcement of your legal and constitutional rights in this country, it's the ones that they choose to enforce. It's the ones that they choose to pursue. And we have seen this sickening, absolutely sickening example during the course of this last week, when down in Wexford, in Courtown, we had a number of men from somewhere, who knows, of some description, who knows, but somehow after putting 3 young girls through the most horrendous and awful ordeal that any young woman can possibly go through, these men, a number of men, with no description, from nowhere exactly, managed to leave the jurisdiction. We're certain of that. The Garda Síochána don't know what they look like, and they don't know where they're from, but they're definitely not here anymore. How did that happen exactly? We've got to a new level, because our old level was we used to let people in without knowing who they were. But the new level is after they have committed horrendous and heinous crimes against the women of Ireland, that they can leave without us knowing who they are either. For 2 days, while these men were leaving the jurisdiction, there was no description whatsoever. No description whatsoever available from Garda Síochána as to what these men looked like during the time when they could have actually been apprehended and actually face justice for the crimes they had committed. Yes. But I tell you something, I tell you what will get me arrested. Tell you I can get arrested in the next 2 minutes. Because I can describe the gentlemen, if we'll use that word, who have left the jurisdiction. Now I have never met them, but they just happen to be in Courtown, Wexford. where there just happens to be a vision of diversity, shall we say, the new Ireland, the new Irish. Now, I'm not saying any of these people were involved in these attacks, because it would be illegal for me to say so. It would be hate speech. And that's the only reason I'm not going to say who they were. But we all know. And we are sick and fed up, not only of an invasion by foreigners as such, but an invasion of persons with no civilized values whatsoever. I'm talking about strong women. All the strong women of the feminist movement who spent the last year and a half talking about bodily autonomy, when what they in fact meant was the murder of the unborn child, the ripping and tearing to shreds of the tiniest and most defenseless human being. They, in the last few days, have not been asking for a description of the men who have left the jurisdiction. They haven't been saying, why have there been no arrests? How did they manage to leave the country? Why did the newspapers refuse to carry any information that might indicate who they are? They have been silent. They've been silent because diversity trumps feminism every time. And it is weak women who proclaim their strength through the bodily autonomy of killing their own children, who are the weakest ones of all when it comes for standing up for real women and real women's rights. And the bodily autonomy of being allowed to walk the streets without being sexually assaulted. Hashtag #MeToo doesn't include the 14-year-old girls in Wexford for them. Hashtag them too is not an issue for them. It will never be an issue for them, because diversity trumps women's rights. Because under Sharia law, you don't have any rights as a woman. None whatsoever. You are property. You are property. And that fuels the attitude which led to the attacks on the young girls during the course of this week. And I, for one, I'm sick and fed up of it. So since Gardaí Síochána have told me I can't follow Teddy Roosevelt's advice, walk and talk softly, carrying a big stick, although in all reasonableness I should be allowed to carry a stick more. One of the first bills we were putting forward all year, if there's a National Party government, is to turn this jurisdiction into an open carry, stand your ground stage. And we'll see how many attacks there are and how many people manage to leave the jurisdiction in that or that direction. The option is no longer left to us to walk or talk softly. We have to do something which the Irish people in general are not used to doing, which is to talk very loudly and to walk very loudly and to talk very proudly and to walk very proudly, unashamed of who we are
and under no illusion that all cultures are equal. They are not, they never have been, and they never will. It is beyond a shadow of a doubt. It is beyond question, even though there's a slight possibility that I'm going to trip over the line into illegality here. We'll see. Another Twitter ban anyway. European, Western culture and Christendom in particular is the superior culture on this planet. Always has been, always will be. And with its disappearance comes the disappearance of civilization itself. And we are seeing exactly that. Import the third world, become the third world. And as we go around the areas of our country, we can see the benefits of diversity. We can see what they have brought with them beyond the criminal behaviour, which will be pointed out to me is a minority. It's a minority within a minority that actually engage in criminal behaviour. I will accept that. I will not accept, however, that the attitudes which lead to these kind of attacks are the minority opinion among fundamentalist Muslims. They are not. They are the majority opinion. They are absolutely orthodox. They are following the Quran word for word, and they are making no mistakes. And if you can find for me anywhere in the New Testament where Jesus Christ condones child brides, then I'll never pick up another microphone again. If you can find anywhere in the New Testament where Lord Jesus Christ says that you can rape, that you can have sex slaves, that you can murder and lie at will so long as they're infidels, then again, I will put down this microphone and I'll do without speaking loudly or carrying a big stick. But you won't find it there. But you'll find it in the Quran. You'll find it from beginning to end, an attitude towards people who are not of their faith. And by the way, Islam is not a race. Everybody can be as twisted as those bastards. Right?
They are here.
Islam is not a race. It is an ideology masking itself as a religion. But there is no reason to suppose you can't have a white Muslim. And a white Muslim will very soon have the same mindset, the same attitude, the same view of the world as every other one. Because everywhere this religion has gone, or everywhere this ideology has gone, and to whatever race it has gone, it has removed all civilizational aspects of any country that it has gone to in the majority. It is quiet, relatively speaking, in Ireland now, because it is still a minority. But we have no idea what is being planned out in Clonskeagh Mosque, even as we stand and speak here today. We have no idea how many jihadis have returned from ISIS to Ireland and are continuing their training in this country. And it is not racial profiling to say that until An Garda Síochána gets some notion of what's going on with the Muslims that are already in this country, we should not allow one single more in. Now that is not hate speech, because they can do whatever they like, as far as I'm concerned, in their own countries. I'm not George W. Bush. I don't intend regime change across the world. It's the people in this building, actually, who are more interested in supporting the likes of George W. Bush and regime change. But the regime change that they have engaged in is changing the environment of our country for what you want, that is based on European and civilized values, and most especially Gaelic, Irish, traditional values, into cosmopolitan mush, where the human being, far from being part of a family, far from being part of a community, far from being part of a nation, far from belonging somewhere and having a place to call his or her own, that we are all of us, just commodities, commodity consumers and producers, which makes us commodities ourselves. And that is the corporate ideology. And that's why they cannot recognize the difference between Islam and Christianity, because to them they're both alien ideologies. They're both alien ideologies, but if Islam helps them to suppress Christian values in the Western world, then by all means, let's use them for that. And news for the people in the building here and in general is that's going to backfire very badly. That's going to backfire very badly. Because when Sharia law becomes a majority, I can tell you there'll be nobody standing the other side of that street on any day of the week with a rainbow flag for very long, until he finds himself hoist upon that very flag post. And we are supposed to be the haters. We are supposed to be the haters. I don't care two damns what do homosexuals do, adult homosexuals, that is to say, in the privacy of their own home, any more than I care two damns what anybody in this crowd does. Why should I? Who is interested in that? Why would we have a parade about that? Why would he? Oh, by the way, isn't June going on a very long time? Isn't June the longest month that you've ever had to endure? That was Pride Month. They're marching in Belfast today. And the flag outside Sinn Féin headquarters is not the tricolour that the men of 1916 died for, and that Irish patriots bled for, and that our children's children deserve to have fly proudly over their heads as they live a decent Gaelic life in a decent Gaelic nation. No! Sinn Féin now! Sinn Féin, to the mortification of the founder of that organisation, Arthur Griffith, is now the Rainbow Party. The Irish Rainbow Army, as it were. They've changed very ever so slightly. As Jerry Adams says, they haven't got away, you know. Well, you've changed a lot. If you haven't gone away, you've changed a lot. Because they would have us believe, for example, and I remember as a young child, and I want to be very careful here that people understand that it is not out of sympathy or any condoning of the murder and violence campaign that took place in the north that I say this. that was carried out by the Provisional IRA or supported by Provisional Sinn Féin back in the day. But there was some sense to it. There was some idea to it. And I remember when Bobby Sands died. I remember the announcement on the radio. I was 10 years of age at the time, and I don't mind telling you, the tears flowed down my face. You can't argue with that kind of courage. Whether his cause was absolutely right. You can't argue with that kind of courage. To literally starve yourself to death for a cause that you believe in. I dare anybody to tell me that Bobby Sands died for LGBTQ. Because that's what Mary McDonald would have you say. I'm telling you that Bobby Sands didn't starve himself to death either to ensure that this country was overrun not by the British Army anymore, but by every other country in the world. This is not the Republican tradition. The Republican tradition, the true Republican tradition, which we get handed down from us most directly in the words of Warwick Pearce when he pronounced what I call the national idea. Ireland not Gaelic merely but free as well. Ireland not free merely but Gaelic as well. That tradition is represented here with us. That tradition of Irish nationalism and pride in just being who we are, which is not to lord it over anyone else in anybody else's country, but only to be who we are at home in our own country. And the simple fact of the matter is we are not going to be able to maintain that Irish Gaelic tradition and culture while we allow speech and discourse and conversation and debate in this country to be dictated by multinational corporations with a multinational agenda. That surely is simple enough. If the people in this building were not even bad-minded, if their agenda was benign, it would still be foreign, and it's still not ours. And I reject it. But it's not benign. It's not benign, as Mark Zuckerberg himself has admitted. They deliberately set out to rig the abortion referendum. They deliberately set out to kill our children. And then they have the audacity to come in here and say, but we brought investment. Are we supposed to thank the Mary Stopes Clinic too when they come in here to kill our children for the investment that they have brought to us? It seems to me that Leo Varadkar will do so. It seems to me that the likes of... No, actually, I'm not going to mention their names. I'm not going to mention their names because RTE and the newspapers mention their names too often to try to get them re-elected. So you know who I am. They are two women, weak women, you ask me. There's a B word, and if it's said to them, then their entire party has to close, their entire political party has to close down for 3 weeks to discuss it, and whoever said it has to resign. Let's just say, that's not strength. That's not strength. It's easy to look strong with the media behind you. It's easy to look strong when you're on RTE and they have a chosen audience that will clap no matter what the bloody hell you say, even if they have no idea what it is that you've said. It is an easy thing to be on their side now. And that is why you find the men and women of courage in Ireland are here today, or if they're not physically here today, they are on our side today. They will be on our side tomorrow. And in the end, like Thomas McSweeney, the Lord Mayor of Cork, said, it will not be those who can inflict most who will triumph, but those who can suffer most. And suffer we have done, and suffer we will. It is a small thing, in one sense, to take down a YouTube channel. It is a small thing, and it can be replaced, and the platform can be replaced, and the voice can be started to be heard again. But the fact that these people had the audacity to do so in the first place, while claiming to be a free speech platform, that's the outrage. That's the outrage. If YouTube said from the very beginning that we only allow left-wing propaganda, that's fine. Most people wouldn't have watched it, and therefore they wouldn't have the market share they have. And in the long run, if they continue the policy, which is only starting with Gemma O'Doherty's channels, and will continue to other channels and other platforms and other means of accessing the general public, then we are going to have to come to grips with these people, literally as we're doing here in the streets. And we have a small country. That's one of our great advantages. Some people don't think it's an advantage. I do. I do, because I don't dream of empire like these people do. We have a small country, and we can reach everybody. And we have a general election, probably within the next year. And we have an opportunity to vote the traitors out.
Yes! Yes!
Both Anti-Corruption Ireland and the National Party will have candidates, hopefully, in every constituency, or nearly every constituency in the country, so that no one single Irish person will be able to say, well, I had nobody to vote for. Because right now we can vote our way out of this mess. It's a relatively simple process, but it's going to take hard work. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take knocking on doors. It's going to take leafleting. It's going to take postering. It's going to take giving donations to the political parties that I've just mentioned as generously as you possibly can, because they're not state funded like Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin. To do this is a simple thing, but it's not an easy thing. It's going to be extremely difficult to overturn a political system which has controlled this country for the past 70 years. But there is a time when that will be done. And there's our gentleman of the left with his tolerance.
I'm delighted to see how Garlish are going to do their job.
Oh, brilliant.
Give that girl
A patriot.
First time I have been here this week. And I have seen a Garda do the right thing for us.
There was women here that come to her life and they did nothing. Nothing. Women in the 50s threatened to be punched in the face and they did nothing. Nothing.
Well, I think, actually, in that context, it's important to say that I'm sure that although the organisation of An Garda Síochána has become so corrupt, the average member wearing that blue uniform is as disgusted as we are. But he tells himself he's just doing his job. Well, he's doing his job when he does things like we've just seen there. Just doing his job. And the vast majority of An Garda Síochána just want to go and do their job. The vast majority, I believe, of Garda Síochána are looking at the ground today when they hear that the men have fled the jurisdiction, because they know bloody well that's how that works. You don't flee the jurisdiction without permission. As simply as that. And the average Garda Síochána has got to be at least a little bit embarrassed. And we shouldn't lose sympathy for them, because that's an awful place to be. We have the idiots of the left. He didn't take whatever he was supposed to take today. Missed his appointment with his therapist. Fiona O'Leary did not miss her appointment with her therapist. She was in, it's in her own words, she had an important hospital appointment. Now, she doesn't describe what kind of hospital it was. But we can leave it to everybody to guess what kind of hospital it is, given that you have organised a protest for exactly 3 o'clock to exactly 3:30, and you miss your own rally, and it's only half an hour long for an important hospital appointment. We can only guess. We can only guess what kind of hospital it was that she was in. There's a pretty good chance that they possibly didn't let her leave when she wanted to, as a danger to herself and certainly a danger to others. But I do want to say a few words to those genuinely patriotic Gardaí whom I still believe are the majority in this country. I still believe the majority of them are decent men and women who want to do their job in a decent and honourable fashion, and I promise them, no more than I promise you, that they will have an opportunity to do so under a national government. They will not be asked. They will not be asked to look the other way when there are crimes committed. They will not be asked to cover up. They will not be asked to keep their mouths shut. There will be no need for Garda whistleblowers, because every guard in the country will be able to just do his duty, proudly serving the Irish people and the Irish nation. And they, above all else, should welcome the opportunity that we offer, maybe not immediately, but soon, for them to get out from under the orders of the corrupt politicians that they currently have to serve. And get back to what they were supposed to do and what they used to do, which is serve the people of Ireland. All we have asked for from this corporation, by the way, that makes billions and billions of euro per year and pays almost no taxes on that. All we have asked them to do is to reinstate 2 YouTube channels. 2. And for all the billions the Irish state is willing to give them, they're not willing to give an inch. Well, if they're not willing to give an inch, then it's time we started to consider whether we should take a mile. Because whereas we would have left them where they were, under a national government, we would have left them where they were as a free speech platform. Neither Anti-Corruption Ireland nor the National Party are going to tolerate this kind of behaviour from multinational corporations directed at Irish citizens or anybody's assault on Irish citizens in our own country. We are going to remain the majority here. We are going to turn back the tide of abortion from here, no matter how long it takes us. We are going to restore the notion that honour and decency should not be an exceptional quality, but should be the ordinary and the expected from everybody who either is a citizen of this country or is a guest of this country. And we should insist also that guests of this country are exactly that, guests, temporary. If somebody comes to your front door and says, I'm moving into your house now because your great-grandparents moved to my house 400 years ago, will anybody say, oh, that's all right, you can take the front bedroom and the sitting room is yours? And even if we did give them the front bedroom and the sitting room, it wouldn't be long before they'd be in the kitchen going, where are the biscuits? We are not going to become a minority in our own country. We are going to fight back. We are going to fight back electorally. We are going to fight back with every means we have. We are going to restore our nation, and we are going to be able, in the end, to go one day, one hopes, to the next world and sit with pride and not shame with the heroes of revolution, real revolution, of Republican revolution, of national revolution, with Pádraig Pearse and others, and say, we were there and we did our duty when it was our turn, just as you did when it was your turn. And I thank everybody who has turned up today, and everybody who is with us. Be with us throughout the next while, and especially in the run-up to the general election. We have to deliver some kind of a shock to the system that tells them they just cannot simply carry on. And so I would urge you to be as good as I know you are capable of being. And I would urge you to be better than you thought you could ever be. Because the one thing that's true about the men of 1916 in particular, but for that matter, the Fenians before them, and those who defended Ireland down through the centuries from the great O'Neill onwards, is not that they were extraordinary men, but that they were ordinary men whom the times made extraordinary because they did extraordinary things, and we can too. Thank you very much.